No, prego. Good morning. Can you hear me? No?
Yes, good morning.
Yes. today Beatrice won't be able to come, so I hope this lesson will be shorter than the others. The topic today's lessons is our internationalization, and the forces which lead to global integration and the pressures to national differentiation. Finally, we will deal with a case study. I think only one case study because you are few. A very interesting case study, a bit long but interesting. Internationalization is the use of global resources such as capital, labor force, or raw material to do business. Internationalization occurs through trade, which means supplying goods and services from one country to another, and through direct investment. According to these two aspects, international trading and direct investment, we can have different types of different ways of entry of industries. The first type are sheltered industries. Sheltered industries are industries protected by a tariff, a regulation, a barrier of entry. And this type of industries are related to services which are fragmented, for example, hairdressing services, or products that are perishable, such as fresh milk. Trading industries are industries where internationalization occurs mainly through exports and imports. And in these industries, products are tradable, subject to economies of scale, and preferences. Customers' preferences are not nationally differentiated. These type of industries are related, for example, to diamond mining. Multi-domestic industries have a high level of foreign direct investment and a low level of international trade. This is because all these services are not tradable. For example, the service related to banks, or because preferences are very differentiated, customers' preferences are very differentiated across countries, such in the case of hotels. Finally, in global industries are populated by multinational corporations. And this is the case of automobiles, petroleum, semiconductors industries. Internationalization, in general, internationalization has an impact, a strong impact on the industry structure, on competition, and on profitability. This is very easy to understand. The first aspect, the industry structure, because with internationalization, there are lower entry barriers into national markets, and this increases the concentration of the seller and causes a diversity of competitors. On the other side, from the side of the buyer, there are more potential buyers from which to acquire. So they are more choice among sellers. The aspect of competition is strictly related to the first, to the industry structure, because with internationalization, with low barriers, we have a higher competition. Profitability, because industries internationalize mainly for revenues and for profitability. We have already talked probably of about competitive advantage. Do you know? Yes, here you have the definition. Competitive advantage is achieved when a firm matches its internal strength in resources and capabilities to the key success factors within its country. In internationalization, we have to expand this concept. And when we talk about national environment, we talk about resources and capabilities. We talk not only about internal resources and capabilities, but also to about resources and capabilities available in different countries. This is the difference, the extension of this model when we talk about internationalization. A comparative advantage is a relative advantage in efficiency. This concept is related to the production by a country of products that make an intensive use of resources that are abundant in the country. For example, Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, salaries are very low, and this is the reason why most industries choose to decentralize production in these countries. So the comparative advantage of Bangladesh relies in labor-intensive products. While in the US, we have many technological resources, and the comparative advantage in this case relies in technology-intensive products. What do you understand from this table? Here we have the comparative advantage, which is measured as country X, for example, US share of world exports in product category A, for example, mineral fuels, divided to country share of world exports in all products. About mineral fuels, could you explain what you understand? Who has the comparative advantage in mineral fuels? The range is from -1 to +1. Yeah, okay. Australia respect to Switzerland, for example, which comparative advantage in this case is 0, while Switzerland has a higher competitive advantage in pharmaceuticals. There are this is the Porter's National Diagnose Framework, which try to explain why some countries establish a competitive advantage within an industry sector, a specific industry sector. There are four factors to take into considerations. The first is factor conditions, because the homegrown resources and capabilities are more important than natural endowments. For example, consider the Saudi Arabia, which has a great production with one of the largest world producer of oil in the world. The second factor is related to related and supporting industries. We call these industries cluster industries. Take into consideration, for example, Silicon Valley, where we have many giants that start up the demand conditions. The more an industry is able to predict and have a clear picture of preferences of customer preferences, the more he can have success in internationalization. The last factor is related to the strategy, the structure, and to the competition. This is easy to understand because the strategy, the way by which an organization is organized, the strategy that are chosen have a strong impact on the choices of the industry. In the value chain, internationalization can allow to fragment the production across countries. This is, for example, the textiles and clothing industry. And the comparative advantage in this case is measured as exports minus imports divided exports plus imports, with the range which come from -1 to +1. You can see that in the phase of the production of the raw cotton, the US has a comparative advantage respect to Germany, Korea, or China, Bangladesh. Fragmented activities obviously requires to take into consideration the cost of coordinating subsidiaries which are dispersed globally. The most important of this cost is time. This is another example of fragmentation of activities in the value chain. We all know that the iPhone is composed by parts which are produced in different countries. For example, the battery in China, Japan produces camera, LCD screens, Switzerland gyroscope. I don't know what is gyroscope. The same for the Boeing 787. This is a very interesting case because we have many components. In synthesis, when an industry has to decide where to locate production, it can take into consideration only activity independently from the others. In this case, the factors that it has to take into consideration are the costs and the availability of inputs. If there are incentives or penalties imposed by governments, and the resources and the capabilities that the firm possesses in a specific country. If the activities are related, and so the industry has to consider the activity X and in conjunction with other activities of the same firm, important factors to take into consideration are the business strategy and the cost of coordination for these activities, these fragmented activities. These are modes of entry or market entry, and they depend on the resources commitment. From the one side, we have transactions. From the other side, direct investment. Exporting is the easiest way to enter. The easiest way of entering the foreign market. By exporting, an organization sell a product or to another organization overseas, or to directly to a customer. By licensing, a licensor grant an organization oversees the use of its brand, its method of production, all that, but in exchange of a royalty payment. Franchising is a way of licensing. In this case, the firm puts together all the ingredients which have made the success in the own country, and then sell this package to industries overseas. These are the main ways of entry. But with long-term contract, an industry contracts out the production of the good, of the services to overseas industries. On the other side, with an eye resources commitment, we have direct investment. In this case, an industry can or own totally a subsidiary, totally or in part, or to make a joint venture. In a joint venture, we have a partnership, an organization from one country, from the own country, and another organization overseas. And these industries share invest money, share the control, share the management over the joint venture. Global strategy. Now we arrive to the concept of global strategy, which views the world as a single fragmented market. We have some forces which lead to globalization, for example, the economy of scales, or the fact to have new potential customers. The arbitrage, which is, do you know what is an arbitrage? An arbitrage is the exploitation of differences in resources availability across countries. And as we have already said, the disadvantages can realize in, for example, the most known advantage is related to low labor costs. We reported the example of Bangladesh. Competing strategically, and learning benefits. Learning benefits, which means not only accessing to new knowledge, but the ability to integrate and share this knowledge within the own country. On the other side, we have some forces which pressure for national differentiation. For example, the cost of transportation and communication, the fact that in many cases, and especially for specific products, customer needs, preferences are very different across countries. And the differences in market and infrastructure across countries. These are some factors which increases the distance across countries. The cultural distance, that means the distance. This means that the distance between the countries increases with the cultural distance, the administrative and political distance, the geographical distance, and the economic differences. The cultural distance is related to languages, ethnicities, religions, and social norms, and are related to industries most affected by this type of distance are those with an high linguistic content or cultural content. For example, consider the French culture, which has made the success of French food and food and wine. The administrative and political distance is related to regulatory aspects, and in fact, is the most industries the industries most affected are those considered as strategic by governments, such as the energy industry. The geographical distance is related to the links of communication and transportation, and industries which are most affected are, for example, those that produce perishable products such as milk, or I don't know, where communication, or fragile, for example, glass. Economic differences, in a broad sense, all these factors are economic. But with economic differences, we refer here to all these factors that are not related to cultural distance, administrative and political and geographical distance. And so the different consumer incomes, differences in resources, and information or knowledge. Industries that are most affected are, for example, labor-intensive industries, such as clothing. Globalization requires a trade-off between the benefits, considering the benefits of global integration and the benefits of national differentiation. For example, from the one side, we have jetting giants, where products are subject to economies of scale, and preferences of customers are not compensated. And on the other side, we have services such as investment or retail banking, where preferences of customers are communicated, but to meet them does not impose prohibitive costs. In general services, there are no multinational, obviously multinational industries. Okay. These are different configuration of industries. The first is the European decentralized federations, where we have many subsidiaries that are autonomous from the headquarters. And the second configuration is related to its predominant during the second post-World War, and reflected the predominance of the U.S. of the world economy in this period. In fact, we have a dominant role of the U.S. parent in technology, in developing technology and products, and many subsidiaries which are considerable autonomous. The third is related to the Japanese challenge. This is the model prevailing during the 70s and the 80s. We have centralized hubs, where a global strategy is pursued from base. But the trend now is to reconcile global integration with national differentiation. In this case, this configuration, in this configuration, we have a strong control and coordination from the center, and between the units which are interdependent each other, and we have flows of technology, finances, people, and materials. Okay, we finished. So we can go ahead with the case study. Okay. I charged the case study on Dropbox. Let me know if you find it.
It's no internet connection here.
Okay, basically that's on moving with strategy in a very broad sense in general. Is the use of standardized products and services in order to exploiting sorry, market. The analysis of this study, which seems very long, it's increased, will contribute to a better understanding of strategies that should be deciding whether or not to expand. And this is the story of managing chain of tendency. The CEO has to decide whether or not to expansion plans. What I ask you is to identify some key points. Your opinion are important for and if in your point of view, Riccardo has to continue or to revise you have 15 minutes. We finish it. 5 minutes more. Okay, perfect. Two groups or only one? Only one groups. Two of you.
We are speaking. But it's fine, it's fine. So the two points are that basically is a information, mass media stuff. And yeah, so there are some problems in the market because they are not sure about staying in the market or just quit. So the conclusions right.
England, Liverpool, Latin class. Strategy is to achieve cities where there are more than 2 million inhabitants and less than 2 or 3 cities. Or more than 1 million inhabitants, less than 1G, or more than 100,000 people, and no cities. I know. I sì, Marcos. So maybe England doesn't work culture of people are not
Finished. So it was like another piece. Okay, fine.
See you the next time.